right, everyone, we are at 4:04 mark by my time. So I will start out with some administrivia and we will get right to the program. Welcome to the Common Start Roundtable, exploring the role of wraparound services in early education and care. Just to note, this program is also being provided in Spanish translation. Because of this, everyone is going to need to take a small action and choose the language they would like to hear. If you don't, you'll hear both translations at the same time, which can get a little or very confusing. So you'll see a globe icon with the word interpretation at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So click on the icon and please choose the language you prefer.
And I just wanted to let everyone know that the icon is not available yet. It will be in a few moments after I make the announcement in Spanish.
Okay.
And if you're on your phone or your tablet, you should click the 3 dots button to look for more options and look for the word interpretation, regardless of the language you speak, please. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos. El día de hoy tenemos la interpretación disponible en inglés y en español. En unos momentos, en la parte baja de su pantalla van a ver el icono de un globo con la palabra interpretación. Si usted está desde su celular, desde su tablet, busque el botón de los 3 puntos para buscar más opciones y le clic a la palabra interpretación. Les pedimos que independientemente de que hablen inglés o español, por favor seleccionen uno de los canales y quédense en este por la duración de la llamada, o si no van a escuchar ambos idiomas al mismo tiempo. Gracias. And you should be able to see the icon. Ya deberían ver el globo en la parte baja de la pantalla.
The icon can also be found where you get the chat box for people who can't find it in the middle of the screen like I couldn't. So anyway, it's there and you got the globe there and you just click on it. Very easy.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll get started slow with just a general overview, and we will then hear from some parents. We will, after that, move on to our scheduled program with our roundtable of providers that are well-versed in wraparound services. So just some notes for the audience here. Please remain on mute as we go. The chat will be monitored, and we will look to include audience questions from the chat at the end of the meeting as time permits. This meeting is being recorded, and just want to flag that for everyone. So hello to all. I'm Brendan Fogarty, the Director of Evaluation and Policy at Horizons for Homeless Children. Thank you so much for joining in. The goal of this event is really to dive deep into the world of wraparound or comprehensive services. They go by a few different names depending on sort of what community or what tradition you come from in early ed and care. So as many providers know, properly caring for families and children facing adversity and economic uncertainty takes more than a simple investment in books and toys. Physical and mental health supports, along with parent engagement and economic supports, can be essential services for ensuring that children and their families can thrive. Without these services, children may miss out on opportunities for stable, supportive learning. But as we all know, these services are expensive. Many providers cannot afford many providers cannot afford to offer these services. So they know they need them, but they just happen to be out of reach time and time again. The Common Start legislation looks to break this logjam and really break new ground in its embrace of a simple idea. Providers that serve families and children facing adversity need the funding they need full funding really to provide critical wraparound services. So while the bill doesn't mandate a specific list of services, It envisions a world in which a very broad suite of services would be considered as a part of full funding of high quality early education and care. So to really put this topic in perspective, I wanted to welcome our CEO, Kate Barant from Horizons for Homeless Children, to really provide her insights into the role these services play as tools to empower families and support progress across 2 generations.
Thank you, Brendan. So thank you all for joining us in this important discussion. My name is Kate Baran, and I am the CEO of Horizons for Homeless Children. For those of you who aren't aware of us, we are the state's only dedicated provider who exclusively serves the early education and care needs of children experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity. I'm excited to talk about this particular topic of wraparound services and their importance and also their cost, because I know that you all as providers experience the same thing we do and see the same thing that we do. And that is that children growing up in poverty and facing incredible adversity need a great deal more support than our classrooms alone. Often the stress that our parents are feeling, both financially and in the case of their health, really make it extraordinarily difficult for them to fully focus on parenting. And it also can potentially negatively impact their child's attendance rates and developmental outcomes. Maternal depression, which we see a lot of in the case of homeless families, we all know the impact that that has on children. And so to combat this, we particularly, and many of you, I think, use Head Start and other programs to build a more comprehensive set of wraparound services for our families that include health screening, mental health supports for our parents and our children, and also parent education and engagement activities, so that we can really build on that parent-child relationship and its resilience. However, these, as Brendan said earlier, these are all really expensive and they're not currently supported by public funding. And so, we need the Commonwealth to really step up and do more to help us all provide that comprehensive and holistic approach to serving our families. Many of us as providers end up having to raise philanthropic dollars right now to support those extensive needs. And I know we at Horizons have to raise over $6 million each year to support the true cost of serving the families that we serve. What excites us about the Common Start legislation is what Brendan has just spoken of, and that is the concept that we need the state to pay for the true cost of quality in serving our most at-risk families. So I'm excited to hear the panel discussion and all the great words that come forth from other providers who are equally in this space with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kate. As providers of early education and care, we all know how important it is to really center our discussions of reform in the family experience. It's just so essential to start with what parents need and work backwards. We're excited to have that opportunity with Common Start. And so in that tradition, we want to welcome some parents to give testimony here to talk about their experiences using early education and care. Our first parent is Rosemary. I believe she recently joined the line here. So Rosemary is going to talk a bit about how she benefited from supportive services in an early child care environment.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you faintly, Rosemary.
Oh, hello?
We can hear you. Maybe a weak connection.
Hello? Yeah.
We can hear you, Rosemary.
Hello?
Hello.
Actually, I Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry about that. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Thank you.
I just wanted to discuss my experience with Horizon. Horizon has been a great help to me and my entire family by providing me with childcare and with information that is beneficial for my family. Information like food and resources for my family. I personally enjoy Horizon because through the advocate, I'm able to receive information like healthcare information, job information, and etc. Horizon has always wanted to know how I'm doing and how they can be of help to my household. They can be better and how they can be better and how they can better the school for my kids. So so far those are my experience. I also enjoyed the fact that they try to create activities for parents, like workshop, and other things that can help parents that are not working or seeking for jobs or seeking for other information. So I'm really benefited out of this. I'm enjoying my kids being in health in Horizon because it has been great for them, their learning process. The teachers are great with them. Everybody there is very welcoming and they make you feel at home when you come in. So I'm really grateful to Horizon for providing such a wonderful environment for me and my family.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rosemary. So folks, you heard in there sort of the wide variety of possible services, parent engagement, really chief among them. Putting parents firmly in the center of our programming is an essential, but sometimes costly way to make sure families are getting the education that they and their children need. Our next parent up is Tiffany, a local parent from Boston.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tiffany. I live in Hyde Park with my 2-year-old daughter. I am enrolled full-time at Endicott College, where I'm pursuing my bachelor's degree in business management. I work part-time as a concierge at a local hospital. I am a single mom with full custody of my daughter. I get very little help from her father, but I have my sister who helps me out on occasions. I was able to obtain a childcare voucher to enroll my daughter in daycare right before her 2nd birthday. Up until then, she was with me at home. Childcare is important because it gives me time to get my schoolwork and my housework done, work my part-time job, and it helps my mental health to get a little break. It's important for my daughter because it helps her develop. It helps her development. It allows her to interact with other children. She learns and she gets used to other adults. There are services that would be helpful to get from my childcare provider. Some of the things my family could use help with our on-site COVID testing, lunch being provided, family therapy and needed referrals, food pantries on site for parents for hard times, transportation assistance. It would be great to have a resource center where for parents on site with helpful and up-to-date resources. I would love to see more services like this provided by childcare providers. It would make a big difference for families. We need to make childcare accessible and affordable for everyone and provide critical services to families. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. It's just so essential. I think we as providers here know this, but it's so hard to put it into practice. We really need to start with the needs of the parents first and work backwards in really designing a system of early education and care. So thank you so much to Rosemary and Tiffany for providing their stories, which are so essential for our discussion moving forward. So as we pivot into our roundtable, we do have a quick ask for those watching. We want to sort of shift it up a bit so that the Common Start Coalition is still growing. And we really need to build support from across all different organizations that serve families and kids. This is not simply a conversation for providers of early education and care. This is a conversation for healthcare providers, for community action organizations, So we are asking folks on the call today to really just think through one community organization that you know of that could be a big supporter of Common Start. Additionally, we'd like you to think of one specific family that could benefit from major changes to our system of care. And then we'd ask that you invite them to the coalition, really come to come join us. It's a really informal coalition, there's no dues. We just want all different parts of the system of family support represented. So we are sharing a hyperlink right now on the screen that we can send out after this meeting. But we are asking folks to try to grow the coalition. Let's get as many different organizations as possible. The ask is so much bigger than just reforming early education and care sort of around providers. It's really about supporting families holistically. Great. And with that, that really brings us to the heart of our discussion here. So I want to take just a quick minute to introduce our 5 panelists, and we'll go through some questions to hear about their story. And thank you to James for putting the Common Start sign up link in the chat there. Perfect. So introducing our panelists now, I want to start off with Jose Masso, who's the co-executive director for United South End Settlements here in Boston. We're also joined by Michelle Sanchez, who's the Early Learning Center director and principal of the middle school at the Epiphany School in Dorchester. Next, we're going to hop to the other side of the state and hear from Nicole Blaze, who's the CEO of Holyoke Chicopee Springfield Head Start. Now to the Merrimack Valley, we're going to hear from Maria Gonzalez-Moeller, the CEO of the community group in Lawrence. And back to Boston, Yvette Rodriguez, who's the VP of Head Start at ABCD, a group that Horizons knows very well. Perfect. Well, thank you, panelists, for joining. We're really excited to hear more about your experiences. As we get started, we're so excited to hear about the broad variety of program that we have in front of us here. There is no single unified story of wraparound services in early education and care. Everyone does it a little differently, and that's really what we're here to unpack. So first, Nicole, and then Jose, can you each tell us a bit about the particular services that you offer families in your care beyond the classroom?
Sure. Thanks, Brendan. Hello, everyone. This is a wonderful conversation. So for those of you who may or may not know, Head Start is a federally funded program, and it is designed to have the early education pieces as well as what we call in Head Start comprehensive services. So the two go hand in hand. And so I should say that my whole career has been in Head Start. So I don't know any other way than having the early education and care pieces right along with our health, mental health, nutrition, and robust family engagement pieces of the program. So I just want to kind of say that up front. So that's all that I know. So we are servicing children birth to 5, and we have what we call the center team. And the center team is derived of our early childhood educators, our family service coordinator, our mental health clinician, our health staff. And so that group of folks work collaboratively to really look at the entire, the child as well. So the child in the context of the classroom, the child in the context of their family, and the family in context of the community that they're living in. And so this way we are able to individualize services for families too. There are levels of supports that they can access depending on their needs and interests. And I think Kate said it nicely that parents are really in the driver's seat here at Head Start. We are very much committed to supporting them in the role of their child's first teacher and doing things that we can do to support them on really the road to school readiness, because that's what, at the end of the day, one of the goals of Head Start is making sure children are arriving in kindergarten ready to learn, and so that their families are also ready to support them on their endeavor. And our public schools or charter schools are also ready to receive our families too. So the comprehensive services, what we cannot do internally, we of course have some strong community partners where we can refer out. And so again, we have a small but mighty mental health team of our mental health clinicians, the health, family services, our nutritionists, and then things that we cannot do, we then look to our community partners to connect families to, because we only have families for a very short time too sometimes. So we want to make sure that they are able to navigate and get connected to their community as well, because we know that sometimes families are very isolated, and we know the more that they're connected to their community, the better off they will be and their children will be in the long run. So that I'll just leave it there because there's so much more to talk about, and I'll let Jose have an opportunity to share from his point of view.
Wonderful, Nicole. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thanks again to Brendan and Kate for making this opportunity available to all of us in the panelists as well. So it's a pleasure to be here. United Southland Settlements, for those that don't know, it's a 130-year-old organization that's based in the Settlement House movement. We're located in the South End of Boston. Our mission is to harness the power of the diverse community to disrupt the cycle of poverty for children and our families. And we do this through a two-generational approach. And so we focus on supporting the whole family in achieving growth and economic mobility. We do this through what my co-executive director, Jarrell Cox, who's actually on the call, likes to call our core four. So we provide early childhood education, out of school time programming, and then we have a seasonal summer camp located on Squam Lake in New Hampshire called Camp Hale. And then our fourth program is our family mobility. And so we support parents and caregivers to develop their own capacity to reach goals through one-on-one career and financial coaching, as well as increase their income through our income support programs. And we offer engagement series and skill building workshops as well. Now, as we're going to get into, but over the past 2 years, we've had to pivot. And so, COVID gave a realization that we had to do some things differently, and mainly what they were basically based on the feedback from our community was around food insecurity. So that was like one of the main ones that really did pop up. And because of that, we started running a weekly food distribution program. And so through the support of volunteers and some community-based organizations, we began delivering food on a weekly basis. Happy to share that we actually now still operate that and run that bi-weekly. And we also partner with neighborhood villages, Diaper Circle, and Hope and Comfort for additional food, hygiene items, and diapers that we distribute to our families. During COVID, at the height of it, we also did like a mini grant program to support families with their expenses. And so that happened during quarantine. And as a result, we now transitioned and started a guaranteed basic income program that we started up this past October to support 16 families. And so participating families receive $800 a month for 16 months. And thankfully, many of the families utilize our coaching and income support programs, but participating in the programs are not a requirement. So those are just a number of things that we do, but the coaching and overall family mobility programming that we do is definitely the focus at USCS.
Thank you so much, Nicole and Jose. It's powerful stuff. It's really interesting to hear about the diversity of programming going on. It's clear that there's been a lot of innovation over the last few years. I think we'd all love to hear a bit from at least one more program about how programming might have changed over the last few years. So Yvette, would love to get another Boston program in here. How do you feel that ABCD's programming has changed over the last few years? What have you learned about family needs, and how has that informed the services you guys are providing day in, day out?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Kate, and good to see my colleague and Nicole here talking about Head Start. The program has changed because in Head Start, one of the key cornerstones is working with family and partnering with family. not only as Nicole expressed and articulated very well, and as parent and the primary teachers of children, but in Head Start, parents also share the governance piece of Head Start. So during this COVID, it has changed a lot because the communication and the relationship with parents is very face-to-face, and this has been impacted. But luckily, our parents have responded very well with the Zoom, and we continue doing those activities, the coffee hour, the policy council meeting, the monthly meeting, and through Zoom. But the biggest need that we have observed during this pandemic was the information, providing them and keeping them up to speed, the need for food. So we engaged in a huge distribution of food to all the families because that was a big need. And one thing that we keep seeing that is a big need is the need for housing. And Kate, my friends are partner because Horizon is a partner of Head Start, know, and the fear that we may have more family losing the jobs and as a consequences, losing their home, which is so important to the stability and the well-being of the children and family that we serve. Those has been the main. In addition to that, a lot of mental health, and mental health is a very broad, wide open, and from the stressor that this pandemic has brought to the family, and that trickles down to the children, and seeing the behavior of the children, because we came back in September face-to-face, and from the beginning of the pandemic until September, we were offering a hybrid face-to-face for family who chose to do that, but also in virtual. And because in Head Start, the culture is meet families where they are. So we met the family to whatever they felt comfortable. And as children are coming back, we see how much of mental health that does translate in a variety. So we are lucky, like Michelle said, that we have been able for the last 2 years to have in-house mental health staff to continue supporting, because this trickle is the families, the children, but it's also our staff, because in this pandemic, every single human being has been impacted. So it's keeping that balance to maintain everybody healthy enough to support the family and the children.
That's great. Thank you so much, Yvette. I really love that, meeting families where they are. I think that's so important. And it needs to be a core tenet of early education and care, and not something only a few programs are doing. Really focusing on where families are at. Maria, it'd be great to hear from you really about some of the diverse challenges that families face when you see them coming in with an infant, with a toddler, with a preschooler. What are the spread of issues that parents would really benefit from help with from their childcare provider?
It's a huge spread, actually. Families come in with the most basic needs, and of course they come initially looking for childcare, but as we get to know them, and it's just not an immediate identification on our part, but as we start observing, and we notice that the needs range from extremely basic, like clothing and food, to professional mental health services, within the household, as we are learning more about the family situation or the circumstances behind the child's life. So when the family comes in, we do an intake just for childcare services, but this is our mission, right? So we organically start figuring out how to provide or to refer those families to the services they need to ultimately benefit the child, because we are aware of the connection, and that all those services that the family needs are interconnected and impact the child directly in his or her learning. So luckily, Lawrence, I have to say, we have a very well-established mindset of collaboration and partnership. So we are able to, all nonprofits meet bi-weekly, where we're able to know where to refer those families and kind of informally follow up with everybody, making sure that our families are taken care of. What results in offering wraparound services to the families. Obviously, it benefits the child directly, but when you deliver those services in a synchronized way, it's more effective for the family, because again, they can move up slowly, but in a healthier way, and it's definitely most efficient for programs. We can do it in a more economical way, because we can partner with other agencies that are funded for those services, and we don't have to do it ourselves. There's a huge gap that we can talk about a little bit later with regards to funding, but that's some of that's some of the needs that we see.
Thank you so much, Maria. Michelle, a similar question. When families are coming in with really strong demonstrated needs, and you are able to meet some of those needs, how do you really see wraparound services complementing things that are going on in the classroom? How does that play out in your program?
Yeah, no, I agree with Maria. Like, the services, vary so widely, and I think being able to have an ability to provide the basic needs, to help with the utility bill, to get access to mental health services, it's really kind of the thing that helps a family move from something that could be, something, if you're not there to assist, could be something that stops their progress and stops their ability to keep moving ahead as a family, to be just a little hurdle. So having the services available to the families, where things that could sometimes feel like a major crisis, Yvette, you mentioned like housing issues, that seems to be something that, you think you're in a good space with the family, and then the housing issue appears again, or you think things are going well, and housing, they're now being moved really far away. I think that is kind of one of the big challenges that we continue to face. And as we're working with families who are in crisis, our kind of mantra is like, we've got to try to help you with your stresses, so that the stresses don't come into the child. And we talk a lot about ACE scores and kind of what your stresses and what you're carrying with you, and how being in poverty and dealing with all this seeps into you and seeps into your baby. So we try to get families to be in a space where they can know that we're there. We're able to kind of help with the basic little needs, the basic in attempts at some of the bigger needs. With housing is one that we often struggle in looking for the right partner to make that a possibility, to thinking about ways to create our own housing. We're often like in this space, like, how can we really provide wraparound? We've been doing as a middle school, full service school, for the past 25 years, and all the lessons we've learned there. We're now in a situation when you're working with families of young babies, when their families are most vulnerable, you have to kind of really get in there and provide the intense services. So knowing for a family that I've got a safety net, a family of people who are willing to help me navigate the incredibly complex systems, of housing, of, childcare services, of, food services and TANF. And, when I get frustrated after being on hold for an hour, I just want to hang up, and you've got somebody that's saying, nope, we're going to keep going. We've got this, we're going to get this, service, this form filled out, kind of whatever it is that, the family needs, to not let this thing be something that becomes the like, okay, I've hit my wall. And then it allows the student to come to class, to come to their classroom, ready to learn, ready to be loved, ready to engage in a way that, they know they're bringing their baby somewhere where they're going to be loved, while they can go on and kind of deal with all the other pieces of life that often feels incredibly overwhelming. So having the folks there to really, help with those services is what we've found is like the key to being not just a childcare, but we started with what are the issues the family could face, and how can we be there to help address those issues.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'd love to see that back and forth in the chat. Thanks, Nicole, for providing a little more Head Start information. And thanks, Michelle, as well. I think we're all still learning more about Head Start. It's such a rich program with such a storied history. But this really brings us into the topic that sort of undergirds everything here, and that's funding. We've seen a lot of programs do a lot of innovative things. We're getting a really strong idea of what works. from a brain science perspective, but also from a program operations perspective. But funding's tough. I'd like to start with the Head Start program. So Nicole, can you tell us a little bit about how Head Start funding for these wraparound services works? Are there any limits? I know full-time, full year, full day is a demand from families that might require a bit of creativity to meet as a Head Start program.
Sure, I'll tee it up and I'll let my friend Yvette fill in the blanks of whatever, or Michelle to put in the chat, whatever I might forget. So because this is the Head Start model, that just includes the comprehensive pieces, all of us as Head Start programs receive that funding within our grant. And so we can take that, our grant amount, and then make sure that we are adhering and carrying out the Head Start performance standards. So every Head Start program here in the Commonwealth and across the country has the same performance standards, but how programming might look different from us here in Western Mass, even compared to Yvette's program in Boston. So there are certain limitations in terms of the, I'll call it Head Start talk dose and duration. However, their Office of Head Start is making great strides in offering duration dollars to help programs extend their traditional part day, which is for us traditionally 4 hours school year. A lot of us are moving towards the 6-hour school year. And a lot of us also have EEC funded contracts to allow us to extend the day for families who are working or going to school. The other thing I'll mention about Head Start is there is not a service need for families. So Head Start is designed to ensure that the child gets the high quality preschool experience before kindergarten. So it's not reliant upon if a parent is working or going to school full time. A child just has to be the right age, of course, and then fall within our income guidelines to be eligible for the program. So it's a little nuanced in that way too. And of course, we do have families who are getting back in the workforce or who are working in need or in school, so who do need that additional time, a longer day and a 52-week program. But for the funding, I will say they want us to do these performance standards and carry out, and then they do provide that within our baseline grant. And of course, if we want to do more, that's when we're reaching out to our community partners to collaborate and maximize resources within the community.
Great, thank you so much, Nicole. Yvette, anything to add on Head Start? You guys have really set this. Oh, yeah, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry, this Zoom thing. I'm glad Michelle mentioned something that I even put a note here so I don't forget. As we are looking to provide early education, we need to look at many things about the model of Head Start. It's not a secret that I'm deeply in love with this program. And Michelle expressed it very well. Every child deserves a very well comprehensive support, early education and care, regardless families are working or not. So that's key. And I think that all children deserve that. But I also want to say that people think, yes, Head Start is federal funding, but it's 80% of our budget come from the federal funding. It's only 80%, and 20% we have to find it to match those services. And that's why we go for blending funding and also in kind or non-federal share that we provide. So yes, we have to provide the services. And also we have a law, we have a performance standard, so it's not an option. So it becomes part of the culture that we have to do all those services and support the children and the family. So if the family is not doing well, the children is not going to be doing well. So the earlier we could address and start serving the children, we have pregnant mom. I don't know if people know that Head Start serve pregnant moms, babies since they are 2 months up to 5. So imagine how much impact we could do in the life of these families when we start serving them with these comprehensive services. So the comprehensive service, I have many stories, right? And I could be talking 2 days in a row, right, Michelle, about Head Start, because the beauty is of having comprehensive services is that whatever is the need of the child, being vision, hearing, dental, whatever, is captured early on, so that doesn't impact negatively their success in school. So when people are talking about school readiness, we cannot see it only about an education curriculum teaching them. School readiness is all those comprehensive and creating the proper environment that Michelle explained and Nicole explained very well for the children, so they are ready, they are healthy, they are well taken care, they are in a nurturing environment. They see and feel parents completely engaged in the process. So then is when children are going to be ready to succeed in school and ready to learn what the school system is going to be teaching them.
Thank you so much, Yvette and Nicole. It's so important to peel back the complexity here. You know, when you talk to any program, doesn't matter how well resourced, it's really clear. There's so much complexity in the system right now, and there's just so little support for programs who want to go out and really invest in their families. So
I'll just say one more thing. I was going to, sorry. For our early, our EEC funded classrooms too, if we didn't count them as Head Start kids, we would struggle with being able to provide the same level of comprehensive services. So I just wanted to mention that as well. I'm so sorry, Maria.
No, that's okay. I was going to break the rules. Sorry, Brandon, but I felt compelled to say something. And thank you, Nicole, because it was related to what I was going to say. You know, Head Start or no Head Start, regardless of what the funding source is, you know, obviously all the children that come through our doors as mission-driven organizations, we have the obligation to serve, you know, and to meet needs, you know, the whatever needs they have in order, you know, that are blocking their learning or that maximize their learning. In order to maximize their learning, anyways, I should say. You know, and every program should be funding accordingly, you know, regardless of where the funding comes from. I mean, the funding needs to be calculated based on it's child needs centered, not necessarily a business model. It's really about what the children need. So that's all.
It's a powerful transition in thinking, and I appreciate you calling it out so clearly, Maria. It's you know, starting with the child and working backwards is pretty novel for any sort of American program, and we're hoping we can really take a few steps forward with Common Start here. To talk specifically about program funding for sort of a non-Head Start organization, Jose, you know, you highlighted a lot of really amazing services. We'd love to hear a bit more about how USES is able to cobble things together. We do a whole mess of things at Horizons. We'd love to hear from you folks as well.
No, for sure. Through hope and prayer, Brendan, and no joking about that, but all seriousness, I think 3 ways that we approach it, right? I think one is a dedicated and passionate staff, to be honest with you, and you know, Gabriella, Melody, Colleen, just so many folks who are in our organization to make sure that they're dedicated to making this happen, first and foremost. And then, of course, those early educators who sacrifice day in and day out to make it work. So that's first and foremost, right? And philanthropy is the second one. Recognizing through individual giving, donor relationships, being able to uplift the work that we do, right? And then there are some government grants and foundation grants as well that have been able to support us. But once again, those have limits, right? Those either have amount limits or time limits that then limit our capacity to be able to do the work that we do. And just thinking from a broader perspective, you know, we're a traditional early childhood education program in which we get, you know, state funding and reimbursements and such. And then we also have private pay families. So there's direct program revenue in which we're able to support the direct services. But once again, that's where it stops. And anybody that operates a traditional service understands that that's barely enough to cover your program, right? So anything outside of that, the wraparound services needs the additional support. And that's where we're aiming for. But once again, it's through philanthropy that we're able to do it as that we do. COVID did present, you know, a lot of great opportunities, especially for our food distribution program. Like there was a lot of money really early on. around that. We are a Black and Brown led organization, and so there's a lot of support given there as well. Nonetheless, it's just, like I said, those come with limitations that don't allow us to think long term, recognizing that we're just addressing symptoms and not the root causes, right? And so we're being more reactive than being proactive. And that's the thing, that's the space that we want to get out of. And so everything that, you know, our panelists uplifted in recognizing that when families are supported, children do their best, right? And we are really aiming to get, you know, families out of the space of just surviving, right? And get them into the space of thriving. So I think Michelle named it just in terms of like, if you're dealing with, if you focus on where it is that you're living, how it is that you're gonna eat next, how it is that you can pay this bill, you're not thriving. You're just trying to get, you know, you're just trying to get hand to mouth in terms of like whatever comes in is going right back out. And you can't think beyond that, whatever. So really trying to get to that, like I said, the root cause, recognizing that the research is out there. When families do well, the children do well as well. So that's what we're trying to do, but the funding is the biggest limitation for us.
Thank you so much, Jose. Michelle, would love to turn the next question to you. If your program had stable funding for services, if you knew what was coming, if you were able to plan around funding for wraparound services, how might your approach to providing family support change? What would this really allow you to do over time?
I would have my housing, first of all. I think one of the things that we are funded very differently. Most of our money is from philanthropy. About 10 years ago, when we were planning Epiphany, I made a financial model that I just sat through a very uncomfortable financial committee meeting because I was way off. You know, what I learned is that salaries have to be way higher, that we need more services, we need more access to just kind of pockets of money to help families when we can't find an organization to help. And doing this for 50, 100 families at the intensity that we're doing it needs an incredible amount of staff that, you know, most organizations cannot afford to have. But if you want to do it well and do it, you know, in a deep, very important manner and not just a superficial, here's a piece of paper, good luck. It takes somebody who's willing to go the long haul and willing to, you know, regularly meet with this family and regularly touch base and be there when things don't go as planned, and the 2 steps back and the 5 steps forward and the 10 steps back. And it's not a linear, let's move forward. And I think having people there and having, you know, more than one person with, you know, a huge caseload is incredibly important. So I think if there was just a steady income, you know, coming in to do that, we would just have a lot more of those services, because there aren't many places where you have parents as captive as when you've got their baby. So I think it is like a really nice place to build that relationship with the families. You know, coming from a middle school, it's a very different relationship than you have with a middle school parent than with when they're handing over their little precious child that really doesn't have the right voice yet and the ability to speak up for themselves. So this is a place where I think you can make the most impact with the families, and it's where if you've got the services there, you know, we try to kind of, as much as possible, make it one-stop shopping. How can we help? How can we move you forward? How can we get out into a place where there's less back and more forward? And so we would just do a lot more and provide a lot more of the folks who are doing that work.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I think it's so interesting that you point out how unique the relationship is between early education providers and families. Providers are just in such an ideal position to deliver these services. It's a very unique relationship, really intense, you know, often 50 hours a week. So it's just a very unique part of the system that needs special consideration. You know, one of the last questions that comes to mind before we turn over to the chat, Maria, I know when we talked earlier this week, you talked a bit about sort of like a wish list. You know, what you might do if you had the funding that you need to really support families. So you talked a lot about relying on the local network in Lawrence now. for things you can't provide in-house. But what would really be at the top of your wish list if you had the funding to deliver services at the community group?
So I'll tell you that what's happening now is every time we get funding, and funding is unpredictable, right? Private funding and fundraising is always unpredictable. So, but every time we get it, obviously we use it to help ourselves, and we never are able to invest in capacity building within our own program to have a sustainable service for families. So we ended up doing ourselves, and we all burn out, and we work crazy hours at night, and we are there to service families, but it's really crazy hours, and it's a really unhealthy cycle and unstable. So obviously, if you are allowing me to dream, if we were properly funded, I would continue to rely on a referral process, because again, especially in the community we are with Lawrence and the place we are with relationship building amongst nonprofits, but it would be nice to have dedicated staff, case managers that can follow through, that can hold ourselves accountable for making sure that those families do receive the services. Like I'm never comfortable just making a referral and guessing what's going to happen. We also need some technology to see what kind of a progress we're making. It's this money really serving its purpose. I'm all okay with being accountable for any money we receive. So yeah, family caseworkers, specialists, mental health specialists, every childcare program should have a mental health behavior specialists, and it doesn't get funded normally. So that would be definitely at the top of my list. Dedicated staff.
Appreciate it. Yvette, anything on your wish list before we start taking questions from the chat?
Well, it's going to change based on something that Masop just put on the chat. Less back, more forward. I think this is a great opportunity. I'm happy to see that many people are participating in this, because I think we have a responsibility to advocate for additional funding, because if we know that comprehensive services is the right way to go, we need to move away from it's very expensive. Yes, it's expensive, but it's the best return on investment. And we need to continue guiding and talking to the people who are making decisions on those funding, that regardless it's expensive, is the right way to go. So less back, more forward. Thank you for sharing that, Maso. So the wish list is that people really keep advocating, that we could really continue making the voice that the money has to invest, because then we have to invest in remediation. But why to shift that mindset of prevention rather than remediation? So any penny that is invested in early education and care, and the children and their family, is going to take us on a long, long range. And there's hope for this society.
Thank you so much for that. Folks, we do have a few minutes left, and we're happy to do really field any questions here to any of the staff. I can also go back into my treasure trove of questions if there's anything we need. One topic I'd love to pose to the group here is something that came up when Yvette and I were talking. Yvette talked about how the need for comprehensive services is not something that's simply relegated to families, experiencing poverty. This is a general need that families of all different backgrounds may at some time need a service that is not considered standard outside an organization that can benefit from, say, Head Start or philanthropy. Would folks on the panel like to talk about that? The diversity of need even among families that approach middle income.
Sure, Brent, I'll chime in. I think, the pandemic definitely brought about, some challenges for all families, right? I think mental health has been elevated today is a key one. And that that goes across socioeconomic standings, right? So it doesn't matter where you are, in that if you have your child whose lives has been disrupted due to COVID, no longer around their peers, no longer around their friends in a setting in which they're learning and growing, there's gonna be some challenges. You're trying to maintain your livelihood, try to work, and try to balance those as well. And so a lot of that has been uplifted. And so it's not those from different standings in life. It's from the gamut. It's everybody that you come across that who's been hit with these challenges. And so it's, once again, it's how it is that we support it, meeting families where they are, what is that we can do to be able to support and to be supportive. And even for staff, and just really thinking along those lines, like you have staff who are making complete sacrifices, whether they're not, meeting with their families to make sure that they're being safe, to care for the children, in our programs, what needs they have, right? And so just really just want to make sure that they're being fully supportive as well, that their needs are being met, and that we're addressing it in real time, because it's challenges across the board, and you can really see it, and so I think to that point, it's just the past 2 years has really like shed a light on many different things, and it's not in any particular segment of the population. It really is just uplifted it across the board, and that's what it is that we've identified. I'm sure others on the call have seen the same.
Thank you so much, Jose.
I want to say something, Michelle and Nicole. I'm keep calling you Michelle. I'm sorry. Nicole is a great testimony and of what is Head Start, but I will let her share that. But I came from the childcare world. So when I was a center director, I struggled all my life because I see families that, okay, they are not a very low income, most neediest family as defined by Head Start, which I get a little bit concerned sometimes because it's kind of a label that I think is unfair, and how they struggle. And as a center director, I always struggle, how can I provide these services? So again, Head Start is about the children. It's not about supporting the family if they are working or not working. It's about meeting the needs of the children and their family. Somebody just mentioned they both have to be working hand by hand. But in addition is every person who is in this field, I have seen so much passion, so much dedication, have to have the ability to access those resources, because we never know when a family is going to struggle with something. And sometimes families are struggling with situations that we receive reflect in the classroom, and they are not even aware. But if we have these comprehensive services, it's a very respectful way to support the family in whenever they are, but they have to be available and to support their children. If we take care of the children, we support the family. If we support the family, we're taking care of the children. No matter what way you to put it, it's a win-win.
I would just very quickly add too, I think one of the things that I, like you, Yvette, struggle with is we, have a cap in even our middle school where families can't make over a certain amount of money. And, those families often get really angry because they are not getting access to vouchers. They're not getting access to, housing vouchers or food assistance. And they hit this slightly above, what was considered poverty, which is actually a joke of an income for, a family of four to be, be able to survive with $40,000 or $50,000. And then they do get cut out of the service world. So often we live in that space. And right now, I think we see it even more, where we also started a food pantry through the pandemic. And you've got families who probably would consider themselves middle income, really excited to come pick up a box of food, and I think it's a world where there's a middle world that has been excluded from a lot of services, and then they're barely making it because they're paying this full price for childcare because they're not, they no longer can, they make too much to get the voucher. And that's a place that I often feel like there is this middle world that is, or afraid to work where exactly, like you don't want to work more hours because then you lose this voucher or have to pay more in your housing. And, that's a really difficult world for people to be in as well.
I think that's such an important thing to point out. It's one of the largest cliff effects, I think you'll find in social policy, right? It's either a parent fee that can be manageable or it's full bore, which is incredibly high, as we all know. There was one question I got from the chat that I'd love to have us go out on. I want to hew as close to 5 o'clock as possible to respect everyone's on the panel's time here. Are there examples of cities or county governments, metropolitan governments that have really supported the expansion of wraparound services at providers in their area? Are there models of public-private partnership where, or even partnership between agencies in particular geographies in Massachusetts that we can point to? Would love for some folks to point out, what they've seen working either here or in other states.
I'll just quickly throw out, we started our early child care center with a partnership with Codman Health Center, where they refer pregnant moms, and it also allows us an ongoing, we meet weekly to talk about kid health, parent mental health. It's actually a pretty incredible partnership in terms of, ensuring needs are being met. We've also, because we, again, you can't do it all. We also were the first place we have room to grow, planted a small, boutique right in our building to help provide with the basic needs, the service needs that, clothing, diapers, toys, kind of things like that. So, we took a lot of time and energy in trying to find the right partnerships. We had many failed partnerships as well. But I think we're often still looking for, who is the right partner in food security and, whatever kind of the issues are, and trying to make it as easily accessible to the families as possible. But one of our most, I think, successful ones has been the Codman Health Center partnership.
Thank you, Michelle.
Brendan, I could talk about this until 6 o'clock, but I won't, I promise. But I have spoken about this many times. One of the more successful partnerships we have in Lawrence, amongst many others, so I have to say, because the Lawrence City childcare vouchers is a spin-off of the collaboration that was already happening in the city and the mindset of partnering with each other. But Michelle, to your point, through those vouchers, we are addressing the cliff effect within the city. We cover parents all through 125% of the SMI. So it allows for them to make more money and, continue thriving, like Jose said, not really surviving. We are also bringing in families into the childcare programs that would be eligible for the state vouchers, but are for some reason or another not accessing them because of other barriers that are more hidden, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can share more information later on for that one. But right now we are, just to say, we have 289 children through the Lawrence City voucher. So the city is investing in childcare, recognizing the value it has.
Right. That's fantastic. Some examples from other cities we've sort of seen. I think Seattle has some interesting city-backed programs, creating sort of networks of support for their childcare providers. The Denver preschool program generates a lot of talk as well. There are some programs out there in other cities. In Massachusetts, though, you heard it here. There's some great work in some of our gateway cities in particular. And there are a lot of DIY networks. Michelle talked about her partnerships, Horizons and ABCD, along with some of our partners in the shelter system. We're making it work somehow, and I think there's a lot of energy in this space, and so we're looking forward to some public energy with the Common Start bill right now in front of the Education Committee. So that about does it, folks. I appreciate everyone's time. Panelists, thank you so much for your expertise and sharing your passion for early education and care. This was a great program. We will let everyone go at this time. We wanted to have this really be a daytime activity. So feel free to reach out with any questions. And as always, invite your friends to join the coalition. We're always growing. Thank you all.